Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Automate University Operations with eForms. My name is Grace Ding, and I am a marketing specialist here at Laserfiche with a special focus on higher education. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you'll find this webinar informative. Here at Laserfiche, we are passionate about making your jobs easier by providing you with technology solutions that are user-friendly and take away the burden of repetitive, manual, and paper-heavy processes. So for today's agenda, first I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're focusing on the topic of electronic forms today and why it's an important tool for you as a higher education administrative or IT officer. Then I'll jump straight into a live demonstration of what using electronic forms to streamline business processes looks like, using a contract management process as an example. Finally, I'm going to talk about a real-life use case of an institution using forms to improve their operations. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type it in the Q&A or chat box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and I will do my best to answer them at the end. The first step in talking about any technology solution is pinpointing the specific business problem you're trying to solve. From our many years of experience working closely with higher education institutions, we've discovered that there are a few main sources of process inefficiencies that we've heard time and time again. The first, of course, is paper. Higher education is notorious for paperwork, partly because we're such a highly regulated industry, and partly because many of our institutions have been around for decades, and that's the way we've always done things. It's become a way of life for students and staff. There's a form for pretty much everything, from requesting facilities maintenance to class registration to changing those classes that they originally registered for. The abundance of paper as a source of inefficiency goes hand in hand with, and the pun is intended here, manual processes. Forms have to be filled in by hand at the relevant office. Then administrative staff members have to sort through these forms, shuffle them along through approval chains, typing up the information into student information and other systems, and then filing them away. Think about every time you've had to chase down someone for their signature or approval, or you've answered angry calls asking about where a request is and you have to look through your filing cabinets to find that one document. Or you've received an incomplete form that you need to return to sender, which delays an entire process. At best, this is time you could better spend working on something more important. At worst, this may mean that a student doesn't get into that course they needed in order to graduate, or the faculty member doesn't get the grant she wanted for her project, or maybe a vendor doesn't get paid on time and conflicts and penalties arise. These inefficiencies are endlessly frustrating, and more importantly, they waste valuable time, money, and resources. And finally, the third major source of process inefficiency that we've seen are silos, not just of information, but also communication. Any given institution is using a number of different systems, and any given process involves a number of different departments and stakeholders. And it's always a challenge to make sure all these pieces fit together seamlessly, and that people are talking to each other in the most efficient way possible. But the good news is, there is a tool that can solve these business problems and inefficiencies for you, and that's electronic forms. With eForms, you can take charge of process management. Beyond simply getting rid of paper, you also now have the capability to capture information more accurately, to quickly search for and find the information that you need to make decisions more effectively, to distribute and communicate information to students and faculty and parents and other staff in a timely manner, and finally, to securely manage all your data with more confidence. This process automation streamlines your business operations from cradle to grave. And you can apply this tool across all departments on your campus, this tool of electronic forms. So as I run through the live demo a little later, keep in mind the processes that you deal with on a daily basis, and think about ways that you can streamline those processes using the tools that I'm going to show you. Now, before I jump into the demo, I want to make sure we are all on the same page regarding what we're talking about when we talk about e-forms. It's no longer a rudimentary tool, a simple replacement for paper forms. At Laserfiche, we've been developing our e-forms tool for many years based on constructive feedback from our users, many of whom work in higher education, administration, and IT. So I want to go through what we see as some of the key features that a good e-forms tool should have. The major piece is, of course, the form itself. The best solutions that we've experienced are that these forms should be accessed from many different platforms, such as mobile devices, internal intranets, public websites, and they should be user-friendly for everyone who wishes to access and use these forms, no matter what their level of technical expertise. Your tool should also be able to integrate with any line of business applications that you already use at the institution to ensure data accuracy and also streamline that information flow throughout your institution. And there should also be a workflow automation component to your eForms tool that's compliant with industry business process modeling notation standards and are also user-friendly, such as via drag-and-drop interaction. All right, now that I've given you that brief introduction, let's take a look at Laserfiche eForms in action. I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen here to my demo. All right. So today I'm going to demonstrate how you can streamline the entire contract management review, sign-off, and archival process through a single platform of Laserfiche. There are many areas within this demonstration that are common with a lot of other business processes that you might interact with on a daily basis. So as I go through the demo, hopefully it'll inspire you to think of ways that you can streamline the processes that you deal with. There are three main challenges with contract management and processes like it, and I'm also going to show you through the demonstration ways in which we address these challenges. The first challenge is that for a complex process like contract management, you have a lot of data coming in from a lot of different systems, and you want to be able to capture information from these sources accurately and completely. So right now I'm showing you an example of an intranet, so an internal portal for staff members and other folks within your institution to access forms. I'm going to go click on the Contracts tab, and this brings up an electronic form for a new contract request. So as I fill in this form, I'm taking on the role as someone within a particular department who wants to request a new contract. A couple of the features on this form that I want to point out. With electronic forms, there's some really cool functionality that ensure that you're capturing your information accurately and completely. One of these things is required fields, and that's denoted by the red asterisk that you see on these fields. And what this means is simply that the form can't be submitted unless those fields of information are filled in. And this ensures that you're not missing information that you have to chase after later on. If you tie in the system with any of your existing applications that you're using, you can pre-populate information, such as name of the requester, department information, things like that. And this ensures that there's no need for the manual data entry, and it reduces the amount of error that you have. There are also some great ways that electronic forms ties in with the rest of your process flow. As an example, these dates that I'm setting in this form not only just track the important dates that we need to know as stakeholders in the process to make sure that we get everything done on time, but also it can trigger notifications throughout the process to let us know that there are actions that we need to take to make sure that we don't miss the deadline. So for example, if I set the expiration date of this particular contract to 2 years from now, it can trigger a notification to our contract administrator maybe a few months before this date in 2018, letting them know that there's a contract that either needs to be reviewed for renewal or archived for disposition. For the deadline, of course, we can trigger reminders throughout this particular process to make sure that we're getting this contract submitted on time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and submit that form. The second challenge in a process like this is that there are a lot of different people involved. You have internal staff members from a variety of different departments. You have administrators, you have external users such as suppliers and vendors. And so the question is, how are you going to centralize communication and facilitate collaboration with all these stakeholders within this single platform? So what I'm showing you here is a task inbox, and this is built into the electronic forms tool. So this acts as a task management tool throughout the process. It automatically creates new tasks when actions need to be taken by a particular person with the relevant dates and times to make sure that we're not missing any due dates. And it centralizes everything in the central pane so that we don't have to navigate out of this. As an example, a new task has been created now for me playing my role as a contract administrator. So when I open up that task from my inbox, I can see the information that's been filled in by the requester already, and then I can go ahead and upload the initial draft of the contract. Now, when I upload documents through the electronic form, what I'm going to show you in a little bit is that then those documents that are uploaded can be automatically saved and filed away inside the system so that you don't have to deal with filing cabinets and you don't have to deal with a disorganized information governance within your institution because everything is named correctly, is filed away in the correct folder structure. So after the contract administrator uploads that initial contract draft, another task will be created for the team that will be working on the draft composition and review. So when I open up that task as one of the team members, again, I can see that the key information about this contract, including a contract ID that's been assigned that's unique to this contract. I have a direct link that will take me to the uploaded contract within Laserfiche. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where when you upload a document through a form, you can see that it's been saved inside our system within the contracts folder by first letter of vendor name, and then a folder that's named with information that we filled in that initial request form. We can capture documents from any kind of format within this electronic form, and whatever those documents are, depending on what format it's in, it can either open up in its native application or it could even open up within Laserfiche itself. All right, so the second challenge that I mentioned with a lot of folks involved in a process like this, one of the things is centralizing communication. Especially with contracts, there's a lot of negotiations and discussions around clauses that happen throughout the process. So we want to be able to centralize that. So what I'm showing you here is a discussions function that we've built into our eForm solution. And what this does is it almost acts like an internal forum where you can create discussions, questions, announcements around a particular topic for a particular group of people, and it makes sure that all this conversation is centralized in one place and can be viewed by anybody who you want to be involved in the process. So in this example, acting as one of the team members, I'm going to create a quick checklist to make sure that we're performing all the actions that need to be performed on this particular contract. All right, there we go. So now that post's been made, it can be viewed by everybody who will be involved in this process. And then when the time comes, we can check off these items one by one or have discussions around this particular contract within this single platform. And it's right next to the contract itself, so I don't have to navigate out of this into any other system. Everything is in one place, and it's very convenient for me. All right, after I've set this up, now I can go back to my task. And we are ready for the initial review. As you can see, we've had 2 tasks created after this particular step. This is an example of triggering sub-processes within a larger process. So as well as providing me with a review task, just to make sure as a contract administrator that everything is ready. There's also been a subtask created for initiating the evidence of insurance coverage. Now this is just an example that we came up with for the purposes of this demonstration, but for a contract process, there's steps involved to make sure that we're compliant with regulations. And so in this particular instance, to make sure that this task stays in the inbox and that it's completed at some point in the process, although not necessarily now. This makes sure that we're not missing this crucial compliance step and that we're not letting anything fall through the cracks. But again, it's in our inbox, so we don't have to process this at this moment. It's just there to remind us that it needs to be performed. Now that the initial review has been completed, we have a round of reviews, and we've created 3 review tasks here. What's notable here is with a lot of paper-based and manual processes, you have to deal with consecutive approval steps. And inevitably, sometimes bottlenecks arise if someone's out of the office, maybe, or if someone's swamped with work and they can't get to this particular item in time. This creates a slow turnaround time and could delay a lot of your processes. But with an electronic forms tool like this, you can create parallel approval tasks. So reviewers can make their decisions at any point in the process without having to wait on anybody else. So in this example, we've created 3 approval tasks. Again, we can see all the previous information. We can view the contract if we want to, and then we can make our approval decision. If, as a reviewer, I want to go in and actually make edits to the document, we can also track versions. So this is an important aspect of processes like this where changes are being made to documents throughout the process. We want to make sure that there's one document that everyone is working on. People aren't taking things home and making changes, and we have multiple copies and we can't keep track of which one is the actual one that is the most updated one. So as an example, I can go ahead and open this up. And because it's a Word document, it'll open up in Word. And the great thing about documents opening up in their native format is that you can take advantage of all the features that are available here. So as an example, I'm going to delete a line from the contract. I'm going to save that change. I'm going to make a comment about what change I made. And now when I look at the versions that are being tracked, I can either select multiple versions and compare them, and also I can view the comments that have been made on previous versions. So again, it's very easy to keep track of all of this. We're working from the same document and nothing gets lost in the shuffle. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make my approval decision. And then the final approval step here. As I'm going through this entire process, one of the other important challenges that we need to keep in mind is to make sure that we're tracking whatever actions are being taken in case conversations arise later on and we need to provide evidence of what the process went through. So as a legal reviewer, for example, I just want to see really quickly what the document has gone through before it's arrived on in my inbox for me to process. And that's being tracked as we run through the process. So I can see who the task was assigned to, who it was completed by, on what date, at what time. I can see any comments that have been made throughout the process. So this is a different way that we can view comments and discussions. If I want to see more specific details, that's available as well. And all of this, I will show you later on, will be saved inside the repository. So again, we have that record of what's been performed on this particular contract. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. All right, now we come to a step in the process where we have to involve external users. So once our internal approval is complete, we need to make sure that the vendor has access to be able to make their review decision as well. And it's important here that we're trying to achieve a balance between providing access to external users and making sure that our information is secure. So with an eForms tool like this, with a platform like this, you can provide them with a view to the contract inside Laserfiche, but you can restrict, for example, their access rights. So they may not be able to view other folders from other departments within your repository. Maybe they have read-only view if for some reason you don't wish for them to have editing access. But if they want to view discussions or anything else like that, they will be able to see that because that's important for them to perform their action on this task. So again, we're providing access to external users, and this could be vendors, this could be students, parents. If you're a public institution, this could be citizens. If you have public information requests, for example, and you want folks to be able to see documents without being able to edit them or, you know, save them, download them, that's where this becomes very useful. And at the same time, you're not compromising the security of the information inside your system. So you're covered on all bases. All right, so as an external reviewer, as the vendor, I'm going to go ahead and approve this contract. And now we come to the final stage of this process, which is collecting signatures and then making sure that the contract is executed. So in this step, I'm going to show you a different method of capture. And I always really like showing this part because this is the first section of this process that we're actually going into an email inbox. And I know most folks nowadays, we still work a lot from within our email, especially when we're dealing with external users who may not have automated systems in their organizations. So we can accommodate for that while also still making things easier for you as an administrator or as a staff member. In this example, the vendor has sent us the signed contract in a PDF document through our email. So what we can do is through the built-in out-of-box integration that we have with Microsoft Office, we can simply save the attached signed contract into the repository. And already it knows which folder to save it in. If I wish to name it something differently, I can. And all I have to do is click OK, and that contract is saved. So again, we're not changing the way that maybe our vendors or suppliers or any external users are interacting with us, but on the internal process management side, we're still taking advantage of the efficiencies of a platform like this. All right, once the signed contract has been saved and looked over, then the final step will just be to make sure we're recording who the signatories are on this final form. Make sure we have the right execution date. It auto-populated it to be today's date, but we can make changes to that, and then we can go ahead and execute the contract. So at this point, the process has been completed, but I wanted to show you a couple more pieces that are important. If I go back to the repository and refresh it so that we can see all the documents that have been saved at the end of this process. So the third major challenge that I sort of spoke a little bit about previously is that because higher ed is such a highly regulated industry, which is why we need a lot of these forms and paperwork in the first place, and with contract management especially, it's important to track all the activities throughout the process for auditing and security purposes. And a part of that is making sure that all your documents are organized inside your system so that if auditors or any other people want to have or request for you to pull up the information, you can access that easily and all in one place. But another very important component of that is the records management component. And so what we've done is within our system, we've built in a records management piece where when documents are saved and processed in the system, we're tracking what the filing date is. We can preset what kind of retention schedule that we want for it, what kind of cutoff instructions that we want for this particular document. And of course, you know, because we have a lot of contracts coming in, we can standardize that for all contract type documents, but we can also make changes if that needs to happen. So in this example, we've saved the filing date. We don't want to permanently retain this document. We're going to keep it sort of active until the end of when the contract expiration date happens, which goes by fiscal year. And then we're also, after that, going to retain this particular contract for 5 years, for example, and then it's going to be scheduled for destruction. So the great thing about this is as a records manager maybe, or whatever, whoever the person is who manages this within your organization, they can have reminders for themselves. If a series of records are scheduled to be disposed of, then they can run a search or trigger a notification to let them know that they can process those documents. And that automates the process a lot. We've worked with a lot of institutions where if they're still doing a lot of things on paper, you know, storing these paper records in storage units, it takes them a lot of time to just find the documents that they need for destruction. For a lot of institutions, it's easier to just keep everything permanently, but in the long term, it takes up storage space, it costs a lot. If there are disaster recovery concerns, like if there's a flood or if there's, you know, there's a fire, you could lose those precious documents and important information. And so that's what we've tried to do here, is to create a tool that will help automate that easily for you. And then finally, just to take a step back, once you have a process like this that's been streamlined, we've automated or we've made the capture of information as easy as possible by providing access to the electronic form to whoever needs it. We've saved all that information into our system. We've streamlined the communication between different stakeholders involved and made sure that that record is kept within our system. And also, we've been keeping track of all the activities that have been taken on a particular process or a document for auditing and security purposes. Once we have all that information, then maybe as a business manager or administrator, you can view statistics analytics related to how well your process is running. So if I'm a business manager and I'm running, the procurement department, for example, I have a team of contract administrators and legal reviewers who work with me. I can view a lot of this information that will make it helpful for me if we need to make improvements and further optimize the way that we run our business. So as an example, this is an operational dashboard that is built into our system. There are a few different panes that we can take a look at. The first one is how many instances of a particular process are running and at what stage. So this will help me keep track of how many, contracts, for example, that we're processing maybe weekly or monthly. If there are any processes that are suspended for whatever reason, I can go in there and troubleshoot and see if it's something, that one of my staff members needs help with. And then we can sort of take a look at timelines. So if there are any tasks that are overdue, again, I can very quickly, very easily take a look at that and then be able to fix that problem quickly. And then we can drill down further. So I can, as a business manager, look at how tasks are being distributed among my team. And if someone has the heaviest workload or the most overdue tasks, or is frequently the bottleneck in a particular process, again, I can adjust the task distribution, I can speak with my team, and it makes it very easy for me to make those improvements. We're also tracking tasks by stage, and there are different views that are available, different graphic views for you to get the information that you need. So that is the live demonstration in a nutshell. To recap, I showed you first the information capture piece where the new contract request was submitted. We set the date so that it could trigger notifications throughout the process. We uploaded the initial draft of the contract, which was saved into the repository automatically and filed away and organized in the correct folder structure. We had a series of approval tasks that provided access into the repository or into our system for anyone to view those contractor documents. We created parallel approval tasks so that there's no bottlenecking if someone can't get to their task in time or if they need to reassign it or anything like that. And then we had the external approval portion where we provided access to our system to our external vendor without compromising any of the security of the documents that we had in our system. And then finally, we had collecting the signatures through email, the signed contract, viewing all those documents that were saved into our system at the end of the process, and then took a look at some of the regulatory auditing security-related features like records management and things like that. And then we took a look at the operational dashboard, which is useful for business managers and other folks who want to be able to further optimize processes within your department or your institution. All right, I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint as I show you, walk through very quickly a case study of an institution that is a real-life use case of an institution that's using electronic forms as a tool to streamline processes within the institution. So the example that I showed you, contract management, it's more of a back office business or administrative process, but it's not the only use case that you can use a solution like this on your campus. In this example, I want to talk about a student services related case study. So College of the Desert is a community college that's based in Southern California. They have an enrollment of 13,000 students, which means they're processing upwards of 30,000 documents every year at the college, even more. And because in the past they were using a paper-based system, and they had a high volume of commuter students, many of these student service processes within their admissions and registrar's office were very inconvenient and inconsistent. So many students had to travel up to 3 hours to the campus itself to be able to submit documents or complete their student files. Lines at the office were very long, and often when the student had gotten to the front of the line, they'd be frustrated to find that maybe their documents were lost or they were stuck in processing. But because it was a paper and manual process, staff members couldn't track where that particular document might be. So all these issues sort of drove the college to look for a solution, and they eventually went with Laserfiche, especially the electronic forms, because they wanted to eliminate this paper but also improve their operational efficiency. As a very quick look through what their solution looks like, they created a number of forms. They digitized a number of their student request forms, and then through an integration with their student portal, they made those forms available online. So students could view all the forms in the left-hand side in one view, and they didn't have to learn to use a new system. The forms are hosted within the online portal so that it's easy for them to access. They would also be able to access that off campus at any time, so they no longer needed to travel to the campus itself. And I believe the college also provided sort of computer services for those students who may not have access to these things inside their homes, so it's much more convenient for all of their students. So a student would select the form that they need, they would fill it out. Their integration with their student information system would mean that if they, for example, typed in their student ID number, then a lot of the student information in the form could be automatically populated. So making the process faster for the student entering this information in, and also making sure that there's no data entry. Once any of these forms were submitted, the documents are saved and organized inside their Laserfiche system. A review and approval can be conducted by whoever is involved, in which case they simply open up the application, look through it. If they wish to make any annotations or notes on the documents themselves, they can do that as well. So you're not losing any of the functionality that you would have on paper documents either. I know one of the big things that we hear, big challenges that we hear, is folks don't want to let go of their paper because they're afraid that they'll lose some quality of that. But no, that's all available inside your electronic system. And then after the decisions are made and approvals are made, then the final form will be routed to the appropriate folder, saved, and then archived with the appropriate records retention properties. And I mentioned earlier, College of the Desert, what's really great about their Laserfiche implementation is that they integrated Laserfiche with their colleague or DataTel, formerly known as Student Information System. So this integration for staff members allows them to view everything from within one system. So they can pull up Laserfiche documents from directly within their student information system. So this way they don't have to switch between different software applications. And if the student maybe calls the office and wants to know where the status of their application is, it becomes very easy for staff members to simply open up Colleague, their student information system, or open up Laserfiche, search by the student ID, and then view all that student's documents without even having to navigate out of whatever existing system that they're using. So through this Laserfiche implementation, the College of the Desert saw a number of improvements. These are just some of the major ones. First off, processing time within their admissions and registrar's office has improved by 40%. So what this means in concrete terms is that one of their student workers who used to have to spend all his time scanning in their paper forms is now able to work on other tasks. Documents are easier to find, so there are shorter lines at the office, and also because all these forms can be filled in online. No more angry phone calls about where documents are or if documents have been lost. And then in terms of the bigger picture, because of their implementation, the college has been able to better meet accreditation standards by being able to offer a lot of its main campus services to their extension centers and online students. So student satisfaction levels as a whole have risen sharply, to the point where even the college's Board of Trustees has complimented them on its Laserfiche initiative. And I always love to end on this. The college also received the Models of Efficiency Award from University Business magazine. The University Business is an industry-leading magazine for business officers within the higher ed industry. And this particular award recognizes institutions who have implemented technology solutions to increase efficiency across the college. And I'm going to end on this quote by the college's Executive Dean of Institutional Effectiveness, Dr. Annabelle Neri, and I love this quote. She says, "I firmly believe that what Laserfiche delivered not only exceeded my expectations, but fulfilled this vision that we could be like a Google or Yahoo and use the information around us in an efficient way without having to hire staff to do it all." So that's what we like to see in a nutshell. We provide the technology solution that helps you govern your information in a secure manner, helps you automate your business processes, re-engineer, streamline them for increased efficiency, making your staff happy, making your students happy, making your management level folks happy, all at a very cost-effective level. So that's all I have today. If you'd like to see a more comprehensive demonstration or one that's maybe more tailored to a specific process that you want to see or a specific department that you work in, we can absolutely go ahead and get that set up for you. You can either go to the link that's shown on this page here, and I'll be emailing out the slides as well as the webinar recording afterwards, so you can access that there. Or you can contact me directly. My information is in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions or anything like that. All right, we have a few minutes left. I'd like to open it up now for questions. If you have any, please enter it into the Q&A or chat window at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So here we have a question. Can the process be initiated by an external user? Absolutely. So depending on what kind of a process you're working with, for example, with a lot of public institutions that we work with, one of the huge processes that they deal with is public information requests. So they can make these forms available on their website, on a portal, for example, or they can email it out if that's necessary. And then the external user, which in this case would be a public citizen, would absolutely be able to just fill in that form, click submit, and then that would kick off the actual information request process. So yes, depending on how you want to do it, it can be done very easily. I have another question. Can you customize the forms, such as your new contract request form? What a great question. So I have a couple components to my answer. The first is that we at Laserfiche have created what we call a business process library. So this library is available at no cost to everyone who has Laserfiche forms, and it's a library of pre-built templates, similar to the one that I demonstrated today, ranging from, within higher ed, ranging from change of major minor requests, diploma requests. We have back office administrative processes, so accounts payable. We have HR processes, a whole bunch of pre-built templates. And you can either download these and use them immediately, or you can customize it to whatever you want. So the form solution that I demonstrated to you earlier, all of the pieces of it, the form itself, as well as the workflow in the back end, are built through a very user-friendly drag-and-drop module. So all those activities that you saw, the email notifications, they're drag-and-drop activities that you can configure very easily without needing a lot of expertise. So absolutely, you can customize forms like the one that you saw today, and it's very easy to do so. So I had a couple questions here. One that says, what kind of technology does the form submit to Laserfiche, or how is the information sent? I'm not too sure exactly what you're asking here. But all of the information that's submitted through an electronic form like that, it's captured as metadata within our system. And then, like I mentioned before, any documents that are uploaded through that form, in addition to the form itself, those can also be saved inside your Laserfiche system. I hope that answers your question, but if you want to clarify, then I'd be happy to answer that as well. All right, so we have another question. How many total users can you have, total forms? Is it unlimited? So this kind of goes into more of a pricing, licensing related question. I'd be happy to get that answer for you depending on what exactly you're looking for if you reach out to me afterwards. But in a nutshell, you can have no matter how many forms or users that you want, the system can accommodate that. So we've worked with, for example, Texas A&M University system, the entire system. So they are in the process of acquiring, licenses for all of their users. So yeah, absolutely. It's a very scalable solution. Depending on how many folks you want to be able to interact with the system, we can accommodate that. So we have another question for folks who regularly use specific forms. Is there a way that their information can be saved or something like that? Yes, again, depending on how exactly you want to do it, you could configure a database lookup to auto-populate that person's information, such as contact information, email address, for example, and that would make sure that they get access to those forms or as frequently as they need to. They can also have emails sent to them automatically if it's something that needs to be sent out, on a periodic, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever basis. So absolutely, depending on what you want to do with that, we can sort of make sure that frequent users of the system can have easy access to it. So we have a question, do you have any universities that are using Laserfiche for financial aid processes? Absolutely. This is one of the bigger areas that we've seen Laserfiche being used for. So as an example, Oklahoma Christian College, which is a sort of small, medium college based in Oklahoma. They have, I think, 2,500 students. They started off their Laserfiche implementation inside their financial aid office. So they were digitizing a lot of their financial aid records and all the supplemental documents that they deal with. But they also created an electronic form that's tied into their student portal to allow students to apply for financial aid and then to streamline the review and approval process, as well as, for example, sending out an auto-generated offer letter at the end of the process. And I love talking about their story as well because within their first year of use, they were able to save $31,000 of hard savings within their financial aid office just through getting rid of the paper and then, streamlining a lot of these approval processes. And then from there, they've been able to expand the solution to a shared services model across their campus. So they're using it in a lot of different departments. But yes, if you want more specific information about specific use cases, I can also get in touch with me and I can send those to you. So I have another question, can these forms be embedded in personal websites? So the form can be made accessible through whatever platform you want to use. So yes, if you have a website, an institutional website maybe, or an intranet that you want to host this form on, you can absolutely do that. But if you want to send out links to forms on an individual basis, that can be done through email. Any sort of a way that you want to host your form is possible, especially because this is web-based, so it opens up more possibilities. All right, I think that's all the time that we have. Again, if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on this slide that you see here. Just sort of housekeeping information, I'm going to be sending out the recording of this webinar as well as the slides probably sometime next week. So feel free to revisit the webinar. Feel free to send it to any of your colleagues who might be interested. I run a webinar like this pretty regularly, so keep an eye out for emails for new webinars. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this informative, and don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you. Bye-bye.